All right. Well, reason. Without further ado, it sounds like a lot of people are interested in their personal longevity and in longevity in general here. So why don't you take it away, and then I'll let Beatrice take over my role here. Thank you so much for not only the work that you're doing for the ecosystem, but also for the work that you're doing for the Foresight community. I think you're really like a fantastical source, a resource of information in that space, which is still very, very difficult to grasp for many of us. Thank you so much.
Well, I appreciate having to live up to that now. So let me talk about free cholesterol in a sort of very fast way, 7-minute version of this. My argument here is that free cholesterol excess is an overlooked hallmark of aging. And I'll try to do this without telling you how you're going to die. So cholesterol is one of those interesting molecules in the body. It's interesting in that it's needed by every cell, yet in its natural, normal, unmodified form, it's toxic. And most of it is made in just one place, in the liver, and then a little bit comes from the diet. But it's transported around the body by this enormously complicated system. All complicated systems get completely screwed up by aging, or if you get obese. And the interesting result of this in the case of cholesterol homeostasis is that you get these localized excesses of cholesterol dotted throughout the body, like in the brain, the liver, your arteries. And that's a really bad thing because, as I said, weirdly, cholesterol, despite the fact that every cell needs it, much of your body depends on it, it's actually toxic unless your cells have sort of managed to control it. And your cells only have so much of a capacity to do that. So if a cell finds itself in a lake of cholesterol, it's going to die, or it's going to become stressed and change its behavior. And the fatty liver is just a big lake of cholesterol, and your liver is suffering for that if you have fatty liver, or if you're old and your cholesterol transport is just not as good as it should be. But obesity, rather than age, is really the thing to look at to see the exaggerated version of everything that this local cholesterol excess does to you. All of the horrible conditions that obesity makes worse, that's happening in aging as well, just to a lesser degree. So this is kind of how you're going to die by default. This is how humans die, basically. You get fatty plaques growing in your arteries, and a quarter of us die because those plaques rupture. Another 10 to 15% of us die because the lack of blood flow leads to something horrible like vascular dementia or heart failure. But the current standard of care for this sort of thing, which means lowering LDL cholesterol, which everybody and their dog now knows they have to do, doesn't actually regress this plaque at all. If you take statins for years, your average regression of plaque is 0. Not many people know that. It just slows it down a little bit, which isn't great. So we came along and said, look, let's not do the slowing thing. Let's try something different. So let's target this excess free cholesterol that gets dumped in parts of your body and just get rid of it. Treat it as a form of damage. Do the SENS thing. Go eliminate the damage. So the first 3 points on this slide just recapitulate what I told you. It's a complicated system, goes awry, you get excess local cholesterol, it makes your cells unhappy and die. What we do is we generate gene therapies based upon expressing a combination of human proteins that actually breaks down cholesterol. And that doesn't exist normally. These are human proteins that exist throughout the body in doing their own thing, but they don't come together in combination naturally in very many places at all. You have to force them to do this. But if you do that, you break down the free cholesterol, suddenly the cells are happy again. Everything's going great. And all of this should sound a lot like what happens for, senescent cell clearance or other things, which are clearly, hallmarks of aging that you're addressing. So we have 2 drugs coming out of our program, both of which are lipid nanoparticles delivering mRNA to the liver, and we've demonstrated reversal of metabolic dysfunction-associated steatohepatitis, or MASH, liver disease, and we've demonstrated dramatic reversal of atherosclerotic plaque, which is the thing we care about because we come out of the aging-focused industry. Liver disease later. In a very short explanation, why does it work to deliver a cholesterol breakdown drug to the liver and produce reversal of atherosclerosis out there in the rest of your body? Well, in short, it's kind of like pulling the plug at one end of the bath, since the liver is responsible for shipping the cholesterol around everywhere. If you convince the liver that it doesn't have enough cholesterol, it will do all it can to dial up reverse cholesterol transport from the rest of the body and pull all that cholesterol back, so the free cholesterol that's screwing up your body elsewhere will end up back in the liver and it will get broken down by the drug. So you're setting up this virtuous cycle to drain the body of this horrible thing that's causing problems everywhere. And one of the important consequences is that suddenly it finds it can repair the plaque that was blocking your arteries. The size regresses quite dramatically. So the conclusion of all of this is that really I'm not going to write the paper that says add cholesterol excess to the hallmarks of aging, but somebody probably should. Because it looks an awful lot like a hallmark of aging. You get damage of some sort that disrupts your cholesterol metabolism and transport that leads to this localized cholesterol excess, which leads to toxicity and then produces the pathology of a whole range of age-related diseases, including neurodegenerative conditions, including cardiovascular disease, including liver disease. And you might think of this as analogous to blood pressure. If you replace that bit in the middle of localized cholesterol excess with, let's say, raised blood pressure, obviously raised blood pressure is not a root cause of aging, but it causes so much downstream harm, you can just fix it on its own, and it's beneficial. We think the same way about this. Localized cholesterol excess is obviously not a root cause of aging. It's secondary to many other things, but it causes so much damage that there's a lot to be said for just going in to annihilate it on its own. And that is something that I just wanted to say to a room full of people. So happy to take questions on that before we roam on to the next part.
Time for a question.
In order to get that drug out there, yeah, that's we think we're going to do clinical trials in 2026 if somebody is kind enough to give us the money to do that. After that, approval, add 5 years. Alternatively, convince us to go do it in Prospera. Again, this is somebody giving us the money to do that.
So if you plan to go to a clinical trial 2026, I guess you already have animal data. So what kind of clinical observation you have, and what will be the side effect you expect?
Okay, so we're going to go after the accelerated rare disease version of atherosclerosis called homozygous familial hypercholesterolemia. We're going to try to get the FDA to let us do a trial with the endpoint of plaque regression, which nobody has done yet for the sole reason that no drugs can actually regress plaque reliably. In terms of side effects, we expect exactly none. When you put this drug into animals, let's say using AAV, where it goes widely throughout the body, you see no problematic side effects. If the expressed protein is in a tissue where there's no excess cholesterol, it just sits there, it does nothing. And the only other toxicity you have to worry about is the lipid nanoparticle, and that only becomes problematic at doses something like 10 times higher than the therapeutic doses we use in mice and will use in humans.
Thank you.
Two questions is good.
Yeah. Move on to the next part.
We move on.
Yeah.